So, a common question we get is around insurance claims and whether you should make an insurance claim when you have some sort of damage that happened to your property. And very recently, we've had a lot of rain in Northern Virginia. We have snow. We have lots of weather that has caused various types of damage. And so, I thought this was a good video to make. And I sat down with a friend of ours, Stacy Tucker. She's not only a friend, but she's somebody that we refer a lot of clients to. We refer them for their general landlord insurance, but also when we have questions about anything related to insurance. Should you do this? Should you do that? What's a good amount, etc. And so I sat down with her, asked her specifically about making claims and when it makes sense to make a claim and when it doesn't, because the natural reaction is people want to make a claim because they want the insurance company to pay for it. You've been making your premium payments for all this time and now they should cover it, right? But sometimes it doesn't make sense. So in my conversation, we talk a little bit about that, and I hope that will help you understand a little bit more about when it makes sense and when it doesn't. And so you can have it helps your thought process when deciding what you need to do. I'm Sue Richey. I am the resident. I own a residential property management company in Northern Virginia, and we manage about 1,000 properties. And so we see stuff like this constantly dealing with different kinds of damage. And so navigating the insurance part of it is an important piece. So hope that you'll get something out of this conversation. Here we go. All right, so today I have Stacy Tucker with me again. We've done some interviews before, and Stacy and I have known each other for, I don't know, like 20 years at least. And we were both just with one of the large real estate companies here locally, and we knew each other, but we've both gone in different directions. She is now the owner, not now, for the last 13 years has been the owner of her own State Farm agency. And so she's one of our absolute go-to people for our questions and for referring our clients to for insurance for their rental properties and also for home purchases. So Stacy, welcome to today. But today's just kind of, I wanted to talk about this one subject because it's come up. You know, you and I have had a lot of dialogue in the past about what should landlords, what kind of insurance, and a lot more detail. And we have videos about that. But more recently, because we've had so many storms, I know you've gotten a lot of these questions. We've gotten a lot of questions like this, and we get them, ongoing. We've had a lot of rain in the last week, specifically here in Washington. One of my own rental properties, basement flooded. So that's been fun. But, I know there's a lot that you can and can't say as a insurance professional about maybe not giving people advice about not making claims. But I guess today I just wanted to ask you some things about what should the evaluation criteria, I think, be for a landlord, even a homeowner, about making a claim when there is some kind of damage, and what are the things that they should be thinking about. So that's what I want to talk about today, and just in light of the most recent storm. So I guess let's just start there. And if somebody has, a flooded basement, what should they be thinking about? Should I make a claim? Should I not? And then we'll get into more about, I guess, what
Great question, Stu. The first thing people should be thinking about is to protect their property. Get water buckets, get mops, get towels, and protect your property. Then, if at an initial assessment, you can determine if the damage is over your deductible, then you might consider filing a claim. But the first and most important step is to stop the damage, mitigate further damage, and then try to clean out, dry out, and do what you would need to do to protect your property.
Okay, so basically, yeah, it doesn't matter whether this is a contractor that's, sent by your insurance. Something happens, it's an emergency. You call somebody, you get it done right away, and then you deal with it, right?
Yes, of course. I think people think they have to wait for, I don't think, I know so. People think they need to wait for an adjuster or someone from the insurance company to come out and authorize repairs to the home. But if water's gushing in your ceiling, you're not gonna wait for a contractor or an authorization from an insurance company to stop that. You're gonna take those first steps to do that, just like you would if it were a medical emergency. You would do the same thing for your property.
Okay, that's a good framework to think about it. I mean, that's what we would do as a management company for our clients, whether they have a home warranty or they have anything. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that we're stopping the problem, stopping, the ongoing damage. But okay, so that makes sense. And then let's say then they've taken care of that. Now they're going, I've got, a few thousand here, a few thousand. Now I've got to do this. I've got to replace carpet or floor, whatever. You mentioned looking at the deductible and then making that determination. That's, obviously everybody's deductible is going to be a bit different. Talk about that, I guess, a little bit.
Sure, I don't know if you know this, but deductible is my favorite subject. So it's a
It's a
conversation I
sexy
have
subject.
on a daily basis. I know it's a little bit weird, but I like talking about deductibles. Personally, I am a fan of high deductibles, and that's even before I became an insurance agent, because I feel like I want to reduce the cost of my insurance on a monthly basis for the
Mhm.
times when nothing bad happens. But when something bad happens, your deductible should somewhat match your financial wherewithal, your ability to cover the bottom. I call it the floor, your own personal
Right.
financial um, limits that you can manage. So if you have an emergency fund of a few $1,000s, don't have a $500 deductible. Have a deductible that will reduce your overall insurance premiums over time, and it reduces the need for you to file small claims.
Right. Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, it's similarly in the health insurance world, it's kind of the same. We in our company, we have a high deductible plan. It's not always fun having to pay a lot out of pocket, but we know in an emergency, it's the big things will be covered. Similarly with your home, that makes a lot of sense. So
Mhm.
that's okay. So let's say that, whatever the deductible, let's say somebody has I'm making this up because what is a typical deductible? Let's say for, a $500,000, it doesn't matter on the size of the home.
That's actually a good connection, Sue. The size or value of the home should equate to the size of the deductible. It doesn't always compute in a consumer's mind that that's how it should work. So people often feel like the deductible is a punishment. It's actually not. It's actually a reward. It rewards you with lower premiums when you have a higher deductible and you're considered a better risk. So your rates are lower. So a typical one you'll see on a homeowner's insurance these days is about 1,000.
Okay.
As you can see home prices and home replacement costs going up, there are people that are much more comfortable with 2,000 or 5,000. You're
Mhm.
seeing that now on rental properties, which is what you manage. The minimum deductible in many cases is a percentage of the dwelling coverage. So with our
Ah,
company, it's 1% is the minimum. Sometimes it's 0.5% depending on the jurisdiction, but 1% is a common deductible. And if people are saying 1% of what? 1% of the replacement cost. So if the replacement cost is 450,000, 1% is going to be $4,500
okay. Of the dwelling replacement
of the
cost, of
dwelling
the dwelling, the
coverage.
entire dwelling, not the damage, but we're talking about of the
Yes,
dwelling.
that's a good distinction. Not 1% of the damage, 1% of the dwelling coverage.
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. So in a $500,000 house, you're talking about $5,000 as a deductible.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so then this, I'm just thinking through this, how somebody might think through their decision. Then if in a case like that, unless that damage exceeds 5,000, obviously it doesn't make sense. You're going to be paying 5,000 anyway, fix it, don't make a claim, move on, right? So
Correct.
let's say that damage is 6,000 versus 10,000. Okay. Then I guess somebody has they may think, well, they'll cover 1,000. But then what happens? What happens in the eyes of the insurance company when somebody starts making claims?
Right. So most of the time, your insurance policy includes an accident-free discount or claim-free discount. So if you file a claim, you're no longer eligible for that discount. So that discount will go away after a claim, regardless of the dollar amount. In some cases, because it's so small, there's like a little bit of forgiveness built into there, but you no longer are eligible for the claim-free discount. So you don't get that discount anymore. And you're often carrying that for at least 3 years. you see 3 years.
Yeah.
So you've
Yeah.
lost that discount for 3 years, over $1,000. So you may end up paying for it anyway over time.
So really, you have to weigh the benefits of what is that discount that you would be receiving, let's say over 3 years, versus in a case where maybe it's 1,000 over your deductible, probably not worth it. Maybe 10,000 over your deductible. Then you could start really thinking about whether that makes sense. Is that
That's
a
correct.
okay? So with that deductible or that discount, is that sort of, I know every policy will be different, but in what you typically see, does that automatically come back? Does it automatically get reinstated, I guess, after that 3-year period, or does the homeowner need to do something then? Hey, I haven't
No,
made a
you
claim
don't.
in 3 years.
No, you don't need to do anything, just like you don't need to do anything except file a claim to make it come off, right? But
Right,
so
right.
so rates are considered at renewals. Like there won't be any midterm action. So I file a claim on Tuesday, I don't lose the discount on Friday.
Yeah, okay.
You don't lose the discount until your next renewal.
Right.
You will no longer have that discount at your renewal. So the 3rd year renewal after that one is when the discount will come back, the claim-free discount. So if I can take a moment though to also now talk about surcharges, which is
Hmm.
the opposite of the discount. After that next claim, let's say there's 2 within a 3-year or 5-year period, you may end up with sort of what we call a surcharge, where your rates are increasing. And then it's probably one of your next questions. After a certain amount of claims, you could be subject to non-renewal by an insurance company for excessive claims.
Okay, yes, that was definitely a follow-up question. I mean, the rates, we know that because that discount goes away, that consequence of that is that the rate is higher, right? So you
Correct.
carry that, and then if you have claims now, if we had this happen actually with not State Farm, some insurance company. Has to be 20 years ago. We had a hailstorm. There was legitimate hail damage. They dropped us. We never made a claim other than that, ever. And so it was the surprise. But I does the insurance company, besides the number of claims, then look at the actual reason for the claim? Like, is this an old house that's going to have continual, problems and claims and da, 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 or is this just a, some act of nature that then, like a hailstorm, that this could be a brand new house and then you have a claim, but then maybe you have the risk. Is that a part of the factor, or is it simply just, okay, we have claims and
So that's a really packed question, Sue. You asked several there. So I'll try to cover the highlights and bunch the ideas together. So you understand insurance really, really well because of what you do, because of your property management skills, and you're constantly having to deal with this for clients. So insurance companies reserve the right at all times to take action. As I said, it'll typically be at renewals, about 30 to 45 days before your renewal. You'll get a nice little love letter saying, we like you, but we're not going to insure you anymore. And sometimes that's just a consequence of where you live.
yeah,
It
yeah,
could be a consequence of the insurance company's lost exposure or experience in the last 2 years or 3 years, or in a particular geographic area like California
right.
or
Well,
Florida
yeah,
or
right.
coastal areas or things like that. So
Sure.
you can be non-renewed. Even if you haven't filed a recent claim, there are times when insurance companies have an appetite for certain risk.
Hmm.
Is it equitable? Some would say not necessarily, but so that we can keep rates low for everybody, we
Right.
sometimes have to take action and run non-renewal. And the ones that, of course, that are going to get non-renewed are those who may have had claims in the past few years, 3 to 5, or some other risk factor in that graphic area or something else.
Right. Okay.
Did that
Yeah.
answer all your questions?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does. And I know that was kind of there's a lot in there, but yeah, I mean, that's always the advice we give. Now we can't, everybody has to make their own decision, but people will come to us and when something happens and say, oh, I want to make a claim. Now we're going to help our homeowners, our landlords with claims, but we want to open their eyes to the fact that you want to be careful of what you make a claim for and evaluate it. And that's kind of the just short, brief conversation I wanted to have with you and get your tips so that we can share this with our clients, with other landlords out there who may not know. I mean, we're in a winter season now. There's all kinds of things, you know, there's snowstorms and there's constantly like major weather happening all over the country that causes damage. You guys are busy.
And I don't want you to have to become the insurance expert for your clients. I
Right.
would be happy to,
You're not.
myself or my team would be happy to explain that to them.
Yep.
It's not always an easy conversation to have when someone is thinking, well, I've paid these premiums for 20 years and I've never had a claim. Now I have this loss, that's what I should use it for. That is why I'm actually the huge fan of high deductibles, because
Yeah,
just keep your premiums low and then have your own insurance fund, so to speak, and
exactly.
to cover the floor, the things that are under a certain dollar amount. And I get it. There are some people where, let's say the margins are already really narrow, and I don't have the luxury of paying even $2,000 or $3,000 right now, not to
Right.
mention the frustration and inconvenience of it all.
Right.
So I
No,
get it.
that's
You need to file a claim, because sometimes the insurance company claim process is a little bit easier than you trying to navigate and facilitate all the steps that are need to be taken to solve that water issue or roof issue or tree issue or whatever that might be.
exactly. Yeah, and actually that's another good point. So a tree falls on the house. Obviously, that is not you know, that's an act of nature as well, unless there's damage to the tree and then there's a whole other slew of factors. But you know, there are things like that where that's significant damage. I mean, that's probably worth making a claim. But again, it's this thought process. And yes, we will 100% refer people to you to get more detailed expert advice, especially when
Mhm.
it's, you know, border of something small. We probably will say, think twice about that. But you know, we
Can I
don't.
spend a second on trees?
Yes,
More than I've already talked about this week.
yes.
Um, so that's a uber common question, because it's multi-layered.
Hmm.
Insurance is property damage. It only covers damage to the covered property, the fence, the grill, the shed, the doghouse, all those things. If the tree just falls on the ground, there's no coverage in the policy to remove that tree.
Right.
If it's
That makes
hanging precariously over your home, there's no coverage to remove the tree. The other question is about where it grows. If it's growing in the neighbor's yard or in the common area or the HOA owns it. I always say the trees belong to God. So if they're wherever it's growing doesn't matter. What matters is whose property it did. So I'll keep it short, and that's all I'll say about that. But
right.
that's
I
a
mean,
really common question.
if it's growing on your neighbor, if it's in your neighbor's yard, it falls over your fence, hits your house. That is a neighbor's insurance that is responsible for that. Is that true? No.
No, ma'am.
No.
That's the misnomer. That's
Okay.
the data that people often feel is the case. Now, I always say good neighbors should work together. Even
Right.
before the tree in my yard last week, the neighbor next door to us, we had shared the cost of trimming some other trees that didn't fall because we had already done the trimming. So
Hmm.
sometimes neighbors should work together to try to solve that problem in advance, or maybe the neighbor might help you with your deductible, but it's
So,
not their responsibility to do so.
their insurance company wouldn't get involved in that. You're saying that it's not like these two companies are going to work together. It is, if it falls on your house, it's your insurance, period,
That's correct.
regardless of where what, even it, well, then there's another, if you, let's say you've been telling your neighbor, your tree is rotted, your tree is rotted, your tree is rotted. It's bad. Okay. That's a different, then you're in a different, um, it's a different
And there
situation.
is no Virginia statute that says a neighbor, that a person has to cut down their tree, even if it's unhealthy.
Really. But you
That's
can show that you have told this person and that clearly it's rotted and clearly that you knew that was going to fall. And but then that becomes legal versus insurance, right? Yeah.
among other things, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think this answer, is there anything about else any guidance you would give anybody about deductibles that we didn't talk about? I mean, I mainly wanted to get your opinion on when to do it, what factors to consider, and if it's really worth doing, especially for smaller, especially under your, that definitely doesn't make sense, right? Under
That's
your,
correct.
okay.
I
Anything?
think you've nailed it. The
Yeah.
deductible is an important part of managing your wealth, right?
Yeah.
But there's two parts of it. There's my deductible, which is $2,000. That's part of my wealth. But then this $2,000 claim is also taking money out of my pocket. But I
Exactly.
like to think long term. if my premium goes up by $700 over 3 years, that's $2,100 right there. So I've actually paid for it back, so, and if I
Right.
didn't have claim for the previous 5 years, by having a lower deductible, I've saved money that way as well. So that's my viewpoint on it. It's not always the popular viewpoint, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sharing it as your
Well, and
insurance lady.
it makes logical sense, you know, and everybody's going to do what they're going to do, but we just want to be able to offer professional advice and ask the expert, which is part of this series I want to do. And so we'll probably come back with other questions, but these little tidbits are helpful in just, there's a lot to insurance. So if we can break it down and have little bite-sized pieces along the way, that will be good. So I'm sure there'll be something else. We'll do another one of these, but thank you for your time today, Stacy.
You're
Always,
welcome. Thanks for
always good
having
to
me.
see you. Have a great day, rest of your day, and stay safe.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Okay, take care. So there you have it. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Stacy's a wealth of knowledge for us in the insurance world. So if you have additional questions, definitely get the help of your insurance provider. If you are in the Northern Virginia area, reach out to us. You can message us. Happy to connect you with Stacy. I've put all her information in the notes below. So take care. Hope this channel is helpful for you. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we do a new video. Take care. See you next time.